Vishwanath ji, thank you very much. I am obliged, I am humbled by the long introduction you have given for me. You said I am a prolific author, but there are only 5 books to my name. But the qualification of being a prolific author would still stick to me because I was the associate editor of a magazine called Vedic Astrology, which was edited by Dr. K.S. Charak, and I was the associate editor. And I wrote very regularly in that magazine. That magazine used to come once in 2 months, and we continued to do that for 11 years. So maybe I wrote about 66 articles in that magazine. So that made me a writer.
Thank you. I think I missed out that. Thank you.
Before that, there wasn't much. Okay, thanks again. I will take this opportunity to tell you something about our latest book, which Holla ji have shown to you in the earlier slide. So this is the book. It's called Education and Profession, which is based on half a century of study and research by Justice S.N. Kapoor. I have edited the book, compiled it, and brought it in the shape of a book. It's a thick book having about 400 pages. So it's almost a monumental work, if I can say it myself, because we spent nearly 3 years producing it. To give you a little better introduction of the book, this has been released only this March, on the 6th March of this year. So this is also the latest publication by ICAS. And it needs introduction to the faculty, the chapter chairman, and the other students, so that they can benefit from this book. During the last 2-3 years, ICAS has published several path-breaking books, and this is the latest one. The main author of this book is the former national president of ICAS and former judge of Delhi High Court, Justice S.N. Kapoor. And this is based on his 50 to 60 years of study and research. He's now about 82 years old, and he's been studying astrology right from the age of about 20 years. And most of his study was through Astrological magazine brought out by Dr. Raman. The co-author is myself, currently the chief editor in ICAS. And I've been teaching with ICAS for the last 28 years, as Vishwanath ji has already told you. I have been involved with international conferences since the year 2000 onwards in USA, Germany, and UK. So I started with working on this book because once when I went to Kapoor Saab's residence, he showed me a very big pile of notes, which were all on profession and education. And he had a desire that this could be, if it could be brought out, it would be good, because this is his labor of the last 50 years. I picked up the challenge and I picked up the notes. From there on, the whole story began, and we started working on it. He never stopped supplying me with new articles or even the improved versions of the old articles. and that continued right through the 3 years. So it's not that just one pile of notes were sufficient. Uh, it had to go through several iterations, and I would say you can call it some kind of a manthan of various ideas in various garbs. He had been presenting his own, he had been making presentations all over India for the last so many years. So all those PPTs, the slides or the notes were with him. So they had to be converted into the book form. So that task is finally over, and the book is available to you with ICAS and with Amazon. Uh, the preface of this book has been written by Professor A.B. Shukla, the present national president of ICAS. He has succinctly summarized what is there in the book, and I would like to read one para out of the preface that he has written, because that would give you almost the complete introduction to the book. The para reads like this: the unique thing about this book is that it tries to cover the main topic of education and profession through multiple systems of astrology, like Parashari, Nadi, Gemini Sutras, Ashtakvarga, Navansh, Dashmansh, Dwadashansh, Karkansh, Nakshatras, and many more. Such a wonder is possible only through Justice Kapoor, who has a strong hold on all systems of astrology. The readers of this book are lucky to compare and comprehend the views of multiple systems at a single place and take their understandings of astrology to a deeper level. For lack of space, probably Professor Shukla didn't mention all the subjects that have been covered in this book, but there are quite a few others which I am going to tell you about. The foreword has been written by our respected Gayatri Vasudevji, the daughter of Dr. Raman, with whom Justice Kapoor had a very, very long association. And Justice Kapoor was the former national president of ICAS. Even I have been meeting Gayatri ji, not really so much in India, but in Germany or USA. So even I had a good introduction to her, and she was kind enough to agree to write the foreword for this. This book, though, is called Education and Profession. It has a lot of material on how to judge a horoscope. How to judge a horoscope has become some kind of a phrase because Dr. Raman chose this phrase to name one of his books, a very important books. When we had started studying, only Dr. Raman's books were available in English. And this was one of the very important books that introduced us to the subject of astrology. So this book is still imprinted in my mind. So the focus is not only on the fifth house and 10th house, fifth house for education and 10th house for profession. So the focus in this book is not only on the fifth house and 10th house, but a plethora of other techniques with the help of which one can sharpen one's skills of chart analysis on any subject. If you have sort of studied this book and mastered this book, then you can handle any kind of question that your client asks you, whether it is about marriage or whether it is about land and property, because the book tells you how to analyze a chart, what are the high points, what are the low points, and things of that kind. In this book, we have incorporated many concepts which are not in much use, but they are powerful, and neglecting them exposes our ignorance, incompetence, and laziness only. Kapoor Sahib was very particular about emphasizing certain things which are either less known or less practiced, but they were of immense value to the right assessment of a chart. I am going to read out the contents list in which it would become clearer to you. The book will be found useful by students upwards of Visharad. Those who have completed Praveen, they would enjoy it much more than the Praveen students. Maybe Praveen 2 students can also enjoy this, but Praveen 1 might find it, uh, may not find all the technical terms that they are familiar with it. So I would recommend it especially for the Visharad 1 and 2 and the post Visharad people. This book is full of example horoscopes with analysis, usually detailed analysis, as much as the space could permit. I mean, no horoscope can really be fully analyzed in any given space. So it has to be short. Yet, as compared to many other books that we find in the market, where a horoscope is given and one line explanation or two line explanation of that chart is given. In comparison to that, we have tried to do justice to the example charts, and there is practically nothing which has been explained without the aid of horoscopes. And interestingly, both the kinds of charts have been given, the South Indian style as well as the North Indian style. So it should be useful immediately without having to redraw the chart in your own fashion for the North Indian students as well as the South Indian students. This is a great help to anyone who would like to reach out to the students all over the country. Of course, if time and space permitted, we would have liked to include the eastern side also. I mean that kind of chart also. But usually, people in the north have been using north and south these days. So that certainly helps. I am reminded of an incident which left a very strong impression on my mind, and I think it wouldn't be out of place when we are talking about the South and North Indian charts. When I first went to AQUA, the American Council of Vedic Astrology, for a lecture on Ashtak Varga, I drew a chart on the board in the North Indian style. Immediately, Shri Chakrapani Ullalji, who was the patron of the AQUA and who had also introduced me, he immediately came to the board and erased what I had written on the board and he drew it in the South Indian style. I felt a little, I should say, insulted, as if North Indian chart has no place in this style. I mean, in this style of teaching. Later on, I came to know that in USA, there are a lot of people who follow North Indian style, and there are sufficient number of people who follow the South Indian style. Chakrapani ji was such a highly respected astrologer and a very senior astrologer. I have had a lot of respect for him, and I met him on several occasions in USA later on. He was a thorough gentleman, but his own impression of the chart, I mean, if it has to be an astrological chart, it has to be in South Indian style. That's what my North Indian mind very strongly resented. And of course, the whole world is divided whether South Indian is better or North Indian is better. Basically, both have their own strong points and weak points. So it's best for students to learn both the systems. But usually, a student becomes proficient at one system and neglects the other one. But in this book, we have used both. I would like to read out the contents list for you. I have had the permission of Vishwanathji to spend nearly half an hour on this book. So I still have a few minutes where I can indulge in reading out the contents of the book. The very first chapter is on astrology and the law of karma. Those who are not familiar with the connection between the law of karma and astrology, they would find this useful. And how the law of karma is so very well integrated in our culture, they'll find some resonance of that in this article. Then the next article is significant pointers for proper assessment. Now, this is what Justice Kapoor insists, that one must not neglect the significant pointers for proper assessment. And what are those significant pointers are given in this chapter. Then the very next chapter is also, that also underlines a similar thing. Apparent and real worth of planets. This is a very important chapter. Apparent and real worth of planets. Because when our predictions go wrong, we don't find anything wrong with us. We think that something is wrong with astrology. Whereas we don't know how to see the apparent and the real worth of planets. Then a very important topic called dispositors. Dispositors can be of several kinds, but the three most important dispositors, out of which one uses only one type, and that is the sign dispositor. We only say that this planet is in the inimical sign or debilitation sign or exalted sign. So we are using only the sign dispositor. We don't use the nakshatra dispositor. We hardly use the Navansh dispositor, but those are equally important, if not more. So this article illustrates how to use it, what does it mean, and how important it is. Then a very oft-repeated question, whether to read the Rashi chart or Bhava chart. Kapoor Saab has insisted that it should be a blending of Rashi and Bhava charts. So this has been thrashed out very clearly in this article. Then there is a chapter on Karma Safalya and Vaikalya as per the classics. Whether your work would be successful or not, that is as per the classics. Then, of course, the characteristics of the signs and planets, especially with reference to education and profession. Role of fifth house in education. Yogas for intelligence and higher education. Basic factors for high achievers. Rationale of significators of education and profession. As we know, education has several karakas, significators, like Jupiter, especially, and Mercury. For profession, there are 4 karakas. Saturn, of course, then Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury. So what is their relative value? How do they influence the choice of a profession, etc., etc., has been covered in this chapter. Then we have devoted an entire chapter on Narendra Modi and his chart, because he's a high achiever. He's a prominent figure. So what is there in his chart that has made him a high achiever? That has been discussed in this. And all those things that have gone before this have been included for the analysis of this chart. And one would also probably learn how to analyze any chart through this example chart. How the author has gone about analyzing this chart is a mirror to using analytical skills for any other chart. Then choosing education and profession. Fascinating facets of a Nadi principle. Streams of education and career. Then there is a small chapter on what Dr. Raman has written on general classification of various occupations. It's a small article, but full of great wisdom and great experience by Dr. Raman. That has been reproduced in this. Then planetary combinations for varied professions. This is what is important and has a reference to this subject particularly. Means of earning your bread and butter. Because not everyone can earn by the same thing. I mean, if I see my neighbor earning through a certain technique or through a certain material, if I think that I can also make a big killing with the same thing, it would not happen. Then a glance at different professions. Astrological factors for Nobel Prize winners. Philosophers. What makes a person philosophers and how does it reflect in the horoscope? Then yogas for administrative authorities, the IAS and the other administrative services people. TV and cine artists. Classical directions for professions. Then there is a whole chapter devoted to case studies of eminent musicians like Lata Mangeshkar, Bhimsen Joshi, A.R. Rahman, Shreya Ghoshal, etc. So we've taken about 6, 7, or 8 such great legends from India and one from the West, Whitney Houston. Then wealth creation through profession. People have wealth through various means, but those who produce it through profession, that has been discussed here. Then an all important question, seeking career prospects abroad. Another one, residing in birthplace or elsewhere. These two are sort of interconnected chapters. Then Dhanakaraka and Bhavesh. Labha and Labhesh for prosperity. Gulika's role in successful career. We don't normally use Gulika, but if you have to use it for profession, how to use it, what do the classics say about Gulika? That has been enumerated in this chapter. Ups and downs in career. Interplanetary role of 10th house, 11th house, and 8th house and their lords. Now, normally people read 8th, 10th, and 11th. Here we have added the 8th lord also, because for making big money, you can't do it without the contribution of the 8th house or the 8th lord. Then a standard question of Karako Bhavanashai. Is it universally applicable? Does it have conditions? Does it always spoil the house? Etc. etc. have been given here. Then composite study of Vargas. This is what Kapoor Sahab insists a lot on. And there are case studies which describe how to use the composite study of a chart through Vargas. Then Navansha, the most shining jewel among Vargas. Then Neech Vargottam planet, which means the planet is Neecha, debilitated, in the Rashi chart as well as in the Navansha chart. There are different opinions about that, so those have been thrashed out in this article. Then Nadi and Navansha, different facets. Then there is a whole chapter on S.N. Kapoor, case study for Vargottama planets. So I have written this chapter because Kapoor Sahab refused to write it himself. He said, if you want to write it, fine, otherwise I will not write it myself. Interestingly, I think he has about 6 or 7 planets which are Vargottam, which also have some other qualifications to it. So this is an absolutely unique horoscope you won't find anywhere else, where 7 planets are Vargottam planets. Then there is a small description of Hora chart, that is D2. Then career influenced by nature and traits of a person. And how do you find nature and traits of a person? That has been given. Then prosperity through Drekana. Drekana normally doesn't stand anywhere in the scheme of things because it's just supposed to be for the younger brothers and sisters. But Drekana has a lot to tell you about yourself and even prosperity. So how to see prosperity through Drekana has been described in this. Then Dashamash for power and position. Most neglected subject, but if you understand it properly, which takes some time and reflection, then this is a very powerful tool for studying the career of a person. Then sensitive degrees for certain professions. This is usually not found in most of the books around, but some certain sensitive degrees have been fixed for certain professions. Then Raj Yogas and Dwadashanshas. This is a especially dear subject to Kapoor Sahib. Then we have also given a long chapter on profession, hidden gems of Shashtyansh. Each Shashtyansh is connected with a certain profession. This knowledge is not very common. And we have given all the 60 professions there with explanations that what is written in the original and what is the meaning of those original words in today's context. Then what does Gemini astrology say about education? It's altogether a different ball game. How Gemini system treats a horoscope is very different from the Parashari system. Though Gemini may be a part of Parashari, but the system of attacking the chart is very different. Then there is a very special subject in Gemini astrology, which depends on the Lagna Arud or the Pada Lagna. It's a very, very interesting topic and thrashed out very well in this chapter. Karakansha and profession. Karakansha is supposed to give you a lot of information on profession. Even Atmakaraka gives you a lot of information on profession. 10th from Atmakaraka. And then also 10th from the Karakansha. Raj Yoga is based on Karakansha. Then entirely another stream of things, that is classification of nakshatras. Even they throw a lot of light on what would be the profession of a person and how successful that person would be. Then positive role of nakshatras. Many nakshatras have a very positive role in career and prosperity. Then nakshatra ruled professions from Dhruva Nadi. Then another interesting topic not usually found, and that is Raj Yogas, where Janma Nakshatra is counted from different planets' nakshatras. You see, normally what happens is that you count the other nakshatras from your moon's nakshatra. Right? Here it is other way around. From different planets' nakshatras, where does your Janma Nakshatra or the moon's nakshatra falls? And what would be its meanings? How does that form Raj Yogas, etc.? That has been described in this. Then a question of repeated question. Most astrologers face that question when the client comes and asks whether I would do service or self-employment. What would be good for me? This would be a young man who's yet to enter into a profession, or this could be a middle-aged person who want to shift from one system to another. So service or self-employment, that Kapoor Sahib has done some very special research, and that he has reproduced here. Fame and notoriety. What in the horoscope gives you fame or notoriety? Raj Yoga Bhanga. How do your Raj yogas get cancelled or neutralized or diminished? Then criminal tendencies. Bandhan Yoga. Dashas of planets. Now, here, Dashas of planets, he hasn't gone into those kind of listings that you find in most of the classics. He has a different take on it. And obviously, this book, not being on Dasha specifically, it has only a short mention of how to handle the Dasha of different planets and how they react with each other. Then some different techniques of Vinshotri Dasha. You know, Vinshotri Dasha is a very, very big topic. And it may require not one book, but several books to complete all the elements of the Dasha analysis. But here it has been covered in 4 pages only, but the most important things have been given here. Then the role of 64th Navansha and 22nd Rekana. This is being used quite commonly nowadays. So there is a note on that. Then Ashtak Varga of Saturn for professional indications. Though there are other karakas also of the profession, but he has singled out Ashtak Varga of Saturn and 10th from there, and how to see it in the Prastarak Varga of Saturn and 10th from there. That is his research. Then another very interesting topic is not often seen is transit of planets from their natal positions. You see transit of planets either from the Lagna or from the moon Lagna. Here he's given transit of planets from their natal positions. It's a very important topic and very useful one. Timing of events through Navansha. There are several techniques within Navansha which help you to time the events. You know, Antardashas normally give you a hint of coming events, but many Antardashas are 2 years or even 3 years duration. So how to pinpoint during that time what would be the timing of the event? So Navansha helps you there. And how? Then there is a whole chapter devoted to remedial measures. The remedial measures have been mentioned because there are so many other books, full books on remedial measures, but this is some special material culled from the old sources, not the new ones. Then one of the important features of this book, and of which I am quite proud of, is that we have given 3 types of indexes. One, of course, is bibliography. That is not an index. That's just bibliography, what all kinds of books and things we have referred to. But there are 3 other types of indexes. The first index is for the charts used in this book. So on which page a certain chart, certain personality has been discussed, that page number has been mentioned in this index. So you can always go back to that chart at any time that you want. Then there is another index which is where we have given birth data of celebrities mentioned in the book and some which are not even mentioned in the book. Because when you are doing some research and you need the data for celebrities, often you are at a loss where to find them. So here, whatever we found, that those horoscopes were of important people, but we didn't have the space to include them in the main book. We have at least given their birth data. But let me issue a disclaimer here. We can stand no guarantee for their correctness, which is always true. In fact, I would place this disclaimer with the book that whatever we had from general sources, that data we have given. And I think that data may be right or wrong, but it would underscore the point for which we have used that horoscope. So it doesn't matter, because that celebrity is not coming to us as astrologers and asking for a prediction on their life. We are using their horoscope just to illustrate a technical point. And as long as we are able to do that, even with a slightly wrong horoscope, the point is made as far as the student is concerned. So we shouldn't really make it a big issue that this horoscope is wrong. Maybe it is wrong. Who knows? Even those horoscopes, even those birth times, cannot be absolutely certain, who receive AA rating by Rodin, etc., etc. So in that connection, I must say that from general sources or specific sources that Kapoor Saab had or I had, we have used them, but there is no guarantee that they are full and final things. And there are no special information that such and such person told me so and so, so this must be correct. We don't have any such special source. The third index is that of the keywords that appear in the book. I have seen in most of the books that are produced in India that they don't have indexes. Whereas it is very important for the reader to know, to go back to the same point, so that this book can be used as a reference point also. Once you would read it once, you would need to read it twice or thrice, but you can't still remember where did you read, on which page did you read this. So this index helps you in that. So these three indexes would make this book a very useful book for reference purposes also. There are lots of tables which are worth using as reference when you are doing some other research. So with that, I would put the book aside